Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the top players to target for Game Week 2 Sun Dream Team. Hope you had a good start to the season, but if you didn't, we've got plenty of time to capitalise, and we've got a double game week this week with Premier League and the start of the Carabao Cup for those teams that don't play in Europe. So in this episode, we're going to have a look through the fixtures, look at the top players to target from a selection of the teams, and then towards the end, I'll show you how I got on this game week so far and my initial thinking when it comes to transfer plans. So deadline is Saturday, 11 a.m. Don't get caught out by the new time because last week it was the first kickoff on the Friday. From now on, it's going to be 90 minutes before the first kickoff of the game week. So 90 minutes. Reminder, you can go on the Dream Team app or website, and when you're sorting out your team, it should say in the top right corner what the game week deadline will be. So 11 a.m. Saturday, set your alarms, don't get caught out. And then the first fixture is Brighton versus Man United in that 12:30 kickoff. The first double game week of the season, we've got Carabao for the non-European sides. So that includes Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Everton, Wolves, Fulham, Brighton, Southampton, Brentford, Leicester, Nottingham Forest, and Ipswich. You can see this is the fixture ticker from ffstuff.co.uk. You can check this out for free. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the teams that I think have the best singles. So the teams that have the best Premier League fixture. And then we're going to go through the teams that have those double game weeks and who we think could possibly play in them, because it's not a guaranteed one. There is a lot of rotation, but there's a few sort of Premier League sides playing Premier League sides where teams tend to go a little bit stronger than if they were going to go Premier League versus Championship or League One, for example. So we're going to go through these teams one by one. Across the longer term, game week 3 is just a Premier League fixture, just a single game week. And then we will have our first international break ahead of game week 4, which that has come around far too quickly. But things get interesting after that. So game week 4, we will then have the return of the Champions League, but we'll also have the winners of the Carabao Cup last round will play in the Carabao Cup in game week 4. And we'll also have the teams that play in the Europa League playing their first Carabao Cup fixtures as well. So after game week 2, we should have some clarity, A, on who the European teams are playing, but B, what the next round of the Carabao Cup will be as well. So a bit more information will become apparent after game week 2. I think those draws take place on Thursday next week for Europe. Teams with the best single game weeks or single fixtures this week. It's hard to ignore Manchester City with that home match against Ipswich. They've got the best odds of winning. They've got the best odds of keeping clean sheets, and they've got the highest predicted goals to be scored. So despite just a single, it's going to be hard to ignore that one. I think the guys that didn't go with Haaland last week, you should have sort of seen this match coming, but you're probably going to be quite scared of this one. And unless you're brave enough to see it out. But I imagine that he's probably going to be the most highly captained player for this game week. Unless people want to punt on the Carabao Cup player. But like I said, not guaranteed. Then you have Liverpool, who have a nice home fixture against Brentford, who done well in that last fixture, but Liverpool still did look good. Liverpool the second best for goals to be scored and clean sheets predicted in that fixture too. I'm then going to go to Spurs. Now, I'm going to skip out Arsenal in this one and Aston Villa because they're next on the ticker. But Arsenal and Aston Villa play each other. Arsenal away at Villa. My team, we lost both times. I do expect that it will be still a tight match and Arsenal could definitely win. But I don't think it's a fixture that you particularly target. The only way I would be targeting this one is if you really did regret going without a Saka, potentially, but I don't think it's the best one for keeping a clean sheet. So if you're going back and getting Saka in, I don't think that's a terrible idea, but I don't think it's worthy of teams to particularly target for this fixture. So I'm going to leave Arsenal out as much as I'd love to talk about them all day long. Aston Villa, the same applies. They did win both matches last season against Arsenal, but again, I don't think that Arsenal fixture is one that you're going to particularly want to target. So I'm going to come on to Spurs. They've got a home fixture against Everton, who struggled big time against Brighton in that last match. I think that looks like a strong attacking fixture for Tottenham. So we're going to speak about them. But their fixtures do get a little bit tougher after that. Then Chelsea, they've got a chance to bounce back after a loss against City, but it was kind of to be expected. So they've got a nice fixture against Wolves, and then their fixture starts to turn quite nicely after that. So they will have players who want to target, but that club is a bit up and down at the minute. The other one that I'm going to leave out of the singles is Brighton versus United. I'll talk about Brighton because they have got that double. On the United side of things, I think this is a tough fixture, and I do think that fixture is a tough one to call. They then face Liverpool after that, so I do think that we can probably wait for these United players. So City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, we'll be speaking about those in this episode. And then loads of double game week sides to look at. It will be brief on each of these because obviously being the sides outside of Europe, they don't have the most players to target. But there were some interesting things that we saw in game week 1. So we've got the match center. We're going to include the match center from ffstuff.co.uk so we get a good breakdown of all the point scorers. So thanks again to ffstuff.co.uk. Newcastle, Bournemouth away, Forest away, 2 away fixtures. But I think last week, I don't think we should really read into it too much. They've done well to get the win with 10 men, but a lot of people were disappointed with the scores they got from their Newcastle players. I know price changes come in and won't really work in your favour, but I do think you kind of got to scrap that one and start again for this game week because that really did disrupt things. I think these are 2 good fixtures for your Newcastle players. Palace, 2 home fixtures and nice ones. West Ham at home, Norwich at home. I think this could be good for the likes of Eze, who may not start both, but as we saw in the Carabao Cup last season, he can still hurt people off the bench. And he was pretty unlucky this week. Bournemouth, this does look tough. Newcastle home, West Ham away, but it's still someone worth speaking about. West Ham, Crystal Palace away, Bournemouth at home. It's tough, but they've got some exciting options again, so we're going to mention those. Wolves, double home fixture, Chelsea, Burnley, so nice to have 2 home fixtures, but I do find that this one is a tough one to target, so not going to speak too much about Wolves. Fulham have got a newly promoted side in Leicester, and I think they put up a good show against Man United. And then they face Birmingham away in the Carabao Cup. So we definitely have people who might want to target from them or players that were carrying in from last week. And then Brighton, really, really good performance against Everton. So we'll be covering those. Brentford, hard Premier League match against Liverpool, which I must say isn't that enticing really. And then Colchester away from home. But could that mean that there's more rotation in that second one? And then Forest, newly promoted side, not the best result last week. And then Newcastle at home, though, that could be an opportunity to play a stronger side. With Newcastle rotating a fair amount in Carabao Cup last season, could be quite a strong side we see from Forest. So let's go through these one by one. I'm going to start with the teams with a single game week. Manchester City, you can't see past this home match against Ipswich. And this is one of those ones that could scream out Haaland hat-trick. Haaland, 8.5%. 8.5 million, 59% owned. Snuck up towards the end as people got a bit worried. He's capped 27% last week. Didn't quite deliver, but I think you'll take a goal still. But I expect both that captaincy and the ownership to rise as we get towards that deadline, with City predicted to score over 3 goals in this Ipswich match at home. So expecting Haaland to be very highly owned by the end of this. I think a lot of people might start to rethink their decision to leave him out. Vardiol, 4.5 million. Someone that I started the season with, done really well in that last game. 11 points, 3 bonus. Less advanced than we would have liked to have seen him. Wasn't the similar position to what we saw him back end of last season. He had Rico Lewis, who was sort of playing that more sort of attacking role from the other side, and Vardiol definitely wasn't pushing up as high, but still came with 3 bonus points. Still solid. Got interceptions and pass completions, which saw him through to getting those 3 bonus points. So 11 points and the clean sheet. Yeah, really good. And they've got the best odds for clean sheet again in game week 2. So I think Vardiol's still a really, really good pick and will be getting a price rise. Doku, 6 points. Typical Doku performance, really. 11 ppm, which was shy of hitting the maximum bonus points you can reach. 6 points, just the 1 tackle. But again, lacking in end product. But I do think it's quite tempting. There was the Savinho injury where he went off. Did look good in that first half, but he went off injured. Grealish didn't make it off the bench, so maybe there's a chance that Doku could be a bit more likely to start this Ipswich one. The Man City have just signed or re-signed Gundogan back in, so maybe that means that there's a chance Foden might play a bit more wide again, potentially. But I still like the look of Doku potentially for this game week 2 fixture. And then you've got a player in place for those later European fixtures. Rico Lewis at 3 million will be tempting for some cheap entry into the Man City defence. He did impress, 9 points, bonus. But there is always that risk that Walker does come back in. He was on the bench for this one, didn't come on, but I do think Rico Lewis probably does deserve to keep his place and will get a rise. Foden, 6.5. This is a hard one because the way that the Dream Team game is set out, the price changes happen at the same time as the deadline. So Foden got 2 points with 45 minutes off the bench. Because of his higher price point and low points for this match, he will drop in price. And typically this would be a fixture that you would maybe take a chance bringing Foden in for. I still think it could be a good idea. It definitely could work, but you will be looking at getting a big price decrease, probably 0.3 because of that 2 points, which is annoying. It is frustrating, but I do think that he could be a good one for this one. You don't know that he's definitely going to start, but you would not be surprised if he did and returned. Same applies with KDB, but he had a pretty poor game, I thought, against Chelsea. Again, will drop, but you can imagine either Foden or KDB doing well for points in this game week 2, but probably the price decrease is going to be enough to put quite a few people off. Liverpool, I think they've got another great fixture. So Brentford at home, despite Brentford doing pretty well the last game, you would still favour Liverpool at home. First home fixture under Slot. And Salah was the real winner of game week 1. So 15 points, joint highest scorer with Bukayo Saka, capped by 10% of people, and really did deliver. So goal and an assist, 3 shots on target. Was a little bit shaky towards the start of the game. We went a little while without returning, but did pretty well in the end. Jota was someone that people thought they could potentially cover Salah with if they didn't have Salah, and he did pretty well. Got his goal, 9 points, decent return. 79 minutes playing at centre forward, which is still pretty good. Gakpo did come on. Darwin stayed on the bench though. I think you'd be happy with your returns from Jota. Could have easily had another goal as well from a cross from Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I think Jota, Salah, still really good picks for this week. And if you didn't have any Liverpool ownership, I would definitely be getting one of them. Double up could even be quite nice. Trent, 5.5, 2 big chances created. Like I said, very unlucky not to have assisted Jota as well. Subbed off in the 77th, but I don't think owners would have been too worried because they banked the clean sheet. 3 corners taken. Robertson took 6 corners, but I think it probably just depended on what side the corners were on. Robertson also took 2 free kicks and probably could be decent cover. 4.5 million doesn't really hit or didn't really hit the same sort of level of player performance marks in this one, but we know he is capable of doing it. So if you don't have Trent, I still think that Robertson could be a good one. We just wasn't 100% sure that he would start because Tsimikas sort of started with that first team in pre-season and Robertson sort of played in that B team, but looks like Robertson is back, fit, healthy, ready to start. So he could be a good option if you haven't quite got the money to get to Trent. Szoboszlai versus McAllister is something I was weighing up in my head, but it seems like Szoboszlai is looking like the better Dream Team asset from pre-season, but also going into the first match. So he had more touches in the box than McAllister, more shots in the game, more crosses and chances created. So all round Szoboszlai in this fixture, a bit more attacking it seemed than McAllister, and picked up an assist as well, 6 points. So good return from Szoboszlai. Quansah would be one that disappointed people. So 3 million looked like a really nice way into Liverpool defence at a cheap price. Was subbed at half time. First thing I thought it was injury, but he came out and said it was tactical, something to do with losing too many duels. And he went for Konate. So if you went for Quansah, you wouldn't have got the clean sheet because he wasn't on for 60 minutes. Obviously, still a chance that he might start the Brentford game. Big physical side, though. I know Tony isn't playing, but if it is about winning duels, I do think the Brentford fixture is a game where you will have a lot of duels to win. So maybe Kanate is fancied for that one, but that would probably be a bit of a confidence knock to Kwanzaa. So overall, I would probably just be moving it on because I just want those guaranteed minutes, really. And I cannot trust the centre back that swaps. Cannot swap a manager that swaps centre backs at half time. Centre back feels like it's the position where you're pretty safe from that, but yeah, I wouldn't be trusting it. On to Spurs. So Pedro Porro, really, really good performance from him. So great headed goal, really attacking, everything that we expected from Porro, really, including no clean sheet. Spurs just don't like keeping clean sheets. Didn't take any set pieces, which would have been fairly disappointing because I think he was taking some corners and some free kicks, but Maddison took absolutely everything. And then there was the injury scare to end it. So he got that good headed goal in really good positions. But it seems like he might have done ankle ligament damage or something like that. So we've got to keep an eye on team news on Porro and then decide whether or not it is a transfer out yet. But will be disappointing if it is because he was a really good player in that match. Maddison was someone who I wanted to start the season with, but chickened out a little bit because his sort of pre-season wasn't great. He wasn't sort of playing full matches compared to some other players. But in this game, he showed everything that you would have wanted from him in your team, really. So 12 corners taken, 3 free kicks, 8 player performance marks, got him 3 bonus. And yeah, back very interested in Maddison. Got an assist as well for the Porro goal. So very, very interested in getting Maddison back in. Everton fixture looks great. Newcastle away in game week 3 and then Arsenal at home in game week 4 are the two things that look a bit off-putting. They will have Carabao Cup put into game week 4, but knowing Maddison and his sort of fitness, I wouldn't fully expect him to play that Carabao Cup match. So maybe one to watch and then maybe move on to a little bit later, I'm thinking. Solanke, 4 million, 6 points, 3 shots on target. I think he looked good. I think he had a good game. Looked pretty dangerous to start off with, stayed the full 90, and all ran a pretty decent debut, just didn't get the goal. So someone, again, that will probably be interesting for the same sort of matches or timings as Maddison, but I've got no problems with taking a punt on any of these. Maddison, Solanke, Son for that Everton fixture because Everton had Young sent off. They had a few of their defensive players out anyway. I think Patterson might be out as well. So they've got a real problem at right back and in defence at the minute. So Solanke or Son could be good options. Son at 5 million. Didn't have his best game, but still come away with 6 points like Solanke. 3 bonus. So like I said, could be good for Everton, especially in that matchup. Left wing versus Everton with potentially no right back. So could be an interesting, maybe 1 week punt for game week 2. And then maybe you want to move it on for game week 3 or 4. Or just keep them. Vicario, I'm going to put on the list at 3.5. I'm not interested, to be honest with you, but he got the most player performance marks out of keepers this weekend. And obviously, bonus for goalkeepers has been tweaked this season. So I thought it was interesting to look at. So 7 ppm, really close to hitting 3 bonus points. That came from pass completion. So I think you have to hit 25 passes to be eligible for pass completion. He got 3 for that. So a lot of playing out from the back. 1 successful dribble. I don't recall seeing that one, but a bit dodgy if you ask me. 1 claim and 2 sweeps. So maybe something to keep an eye out for with the PPMs. Chelsea, not overly keen, but they have got a match against Wolves away from home, which doesn't look the worst fixture. But they do play a Europa League qualifier in game week 2, but it doesn't count. So it's not on the ticker, but maybe something you might want to think about if you're looking at like an Nkunku or someone. There could be rotation there potentially. Palmer, 6 million, 5 points, likely drop sort of, I think, with that sort of points. But I do think the upcoming fixtures are good. Wolves, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham and Brighton. This is the start of a really nice run. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see Palmer do well. one player performance mark away from free bonus. If he'd got that, it'd have been on 7. I don't feel like it would have felt so terrible. So if I had Palmer, I'd potentially be sticking with him, I think, with these fixtures coming up. Shot on target, point, and tackles as well. The rest of the Chelsea team, I think I'd want to give a bit more time to really have a look at. So defensively, I think the running is quite nice. But I just have to be sure of lineup. The transfer window is still open, and they just seem to be making a ton of signings still. So it's a wait and see. One thing I did notice looking at the player performance marks, I noticed Colwill was at 7, Cucurella was at 7, and all of their pass percentages were really quite high, which was getting them those initial points for having above 90 pass completion. Maybe that is a new thing with sort of the way Maresca wants to play. Maybe it could be sort of bonus quite a bit for these Chelsea defenders potentially, but it's one to keep an eye on and wait for later. 58 minutes for Nkunku, I think was concerning. I think I'd wait before going anywhere near that one. And then João Felix signing for them again is a worry really, because they've got so many options in those attacking positions. They've just stripped Sterling of his number 7, so it's not looking like the happiest place at the minute, Chelsea. So I would just wait and see what happens. But I do think these fixtures do look quite appealing. So for the moment, it's just Palmer. On to Carabao Cup teams. Again, if you've enjoyed it so far, leave a like, subscribe. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Newcastle. So I think we shouldn't panic with Newcastle players. I think the sending off ruined it. They've done well to win with 10 men. But in terms of Dream Team, I feel like this week was a little bit of a write-off unless you went for defenders and got those clean sheets. So clean sheets for Livramento, Hall, Dan Burn, Nick Pope, everyone but Fabian Schär, who got sent off for that head-to-head clash with Diaz. Isak, 5 million, got an assist, but no shots. But again, can you read into it that much, getting a red card that early? Bruno Guimaraes, 4.5, got 6 points, 6 tackles, a player performance mark away from hitting a free bonus. The sort of points that he's reliable for continuously. Again, I wouldn't be moving him out for a double game week. I think you picked him for a reason, and these fixtures, Bournemouth, Forest, look good. And even after that, Spurs, Wolves, Fulham, still okay fixtures, but maybe you'll want to move to Europe by then. Gordon, 4.5, 3 points. Again, disappointing. He is going to drop in price. But I'd still be trusting him and hoping him for sort of 70 minutes in one, maybe a bench appearance in the second. I do understand that people will want to chase value and move him on to someone that might be getting a price increase. But yeah, I feel like you would have wanted to keep him if he'd played the full match and played normally, even if he hadn't got an attack in return. Yeah, I wouldn't panic. I would probably still be keeping Gordon. Murphy, another one who was just sort of victim of the Fabian Schär red card, subbed off after 30 minutes, showed good potential through pre-season. People expected to start and he got it. I think he would have stayed on if it wasn't for the red card. So again, he's probably going to get good minutes in that double. So I would probably be sticking with him for the price point. Defense, no issues. They're a hold. And if anything, maybe they've come out a bit better. The defense may be worse because of Schär being missing. But Trippier didn't feature, played for the under-21s on Monday. Rumours that I think he might be losing his box at the stadium. I don't know how much you can read into that, but maybe he's out, and that looks good for Livramento. And then Schär being suspended means that Dan Burn is going to play at centre-back, which means Lewis Hall looks safer again at left-back. So I think defence, real winners this week. I wouldn't panic. You chose your Newcastle players for a reason. I'd probably keep them still, even if I did think they were going down in price. Crystal Palace, home double looks good. West Ham at home, Norwich at home. Eberechi Eze was unlucky not to come away with more in this match. So 4.5 million, got 5 points. Might be the bare minimum to maybe get away without going down, but maybe could get a drop of like 0.1. But again, I wouldn't panic on this one. He looked really good. And on another day, he gets a really good return. So goal mistakenly ruled out, or wrongly ruled out for a free kick, and the referee blew a whistle too early, and then it ended up being disallowed for something that it shouldn't have been. One player performance mark off of bonus points, 3 shots on target, and 7 shots in the game. I think all round a pretty decent performance. Only did take 1 corner, and I sort of said that I thought it'd be on all set pieces, but looked like Wharton was taking set pieces from the other side. Wharton took 2 corners and Eze took 1, but obviously Eze right footer, Wharton left footer, so I'm assuming just preference for in swingers there. Munoz, £3 million defender, got an assist, carried on where he left off last season. 4 tackles, 6 points. He'll get a rise. Again, playing really, really high as an attacking wing back. And Mitchell on the other side as well, doing a good job, but I still would pick Munoz over Mitchell because of those attacking returns last season. Mateta surprisingly started, got 45, but swapped with Edouard. I reckon probably a similar scenario in this Carabao Cup. So I imagine that maybe one will start one will start the other. And if they're not both in a condition to play 90, maybe they'll both get an appearance off the bench as well. So I don't think he's a terrible option, but I wouldn't be doing it. Kamada, 2 million. I know people that started with him will be disappointing. No returns, but he's 2 million. You're not going to get attacking returns every game. Picked up a booking, so just a 1 point. But I'd still keep the faith. West Ham at home, Norwich at home, good fixtures. He's the manager's player, someone that he'd worked with before, so he's going to really want this to work out. So I think Kamada, 2 million, you'd just keep him in for the double, I think. Eze for that double, I think he's going to probably start one and then get an appearance off the bench. But I don't think that's the end of the world. Defence, Gahey started, obviously links away to Newcastle, but they seem like they're cooling down a little bit. But then a surprise move that Anson has gone to Fulham. So maybe the defence is looking a little bit light going into this double game week. There's still a chance that they can bring new players in. But maybe defenders like Munoz, Mitchell could get an opportunity at 2. I know they're fullbacks, or wing backs. But if they are light numbers, maybe someone has to fill in sort of in one of those back 3 centre-back positions. Bournemouth, not many options really. Semenyo, 2.5. Down as a midfielder on the game, but playing as a striker with Solanke being transferred to Spurs. He got 10 points, a goal, and will get a nice rise as he's only 2.5 million. But these are 2 sort of challenging fixtures, I think. Newcastle home, West Ham away. I think he'll start Newcastle. I couldn't guarantee whether he'd start the second fixture. Bournemouth have signed Evan Nilsson. He could be in line for a start against Newcastle. But if they decide not to, maybe he gets his debut in the Carabao Cup. I think Semenyo could be a decent punt, or if you are just moving around to 2.5. But overall, I do think they're quite tough fixtures. And the run gets quite hard. So Everton away, Chelsea home, Liverpool away. If you do bring them in, maybe you're bringing in a player that you're probably going to want to transfer out later. West Ham, Crystal Palace away, Bournemouth home are the 2 fixtures in game week 2. And then Kudus is probably the only one I'd like to look at for this week at 4.5. So 6 points from him. It's an okay return. And again, another typical performance from him. Doing really well for bonus, 8 ppm. No attacking returns though in this one. Just a shot, just a big chance created. But he played 90 minutes, and Bowen and Paqueta both sort of got early subs. Kudus played a lot more preseason than those 2, so maybe Kudus is in a bit of a better condition. Maybe that lines him up for a better chance of playing 2 matches or having 2 starts than the other 2. Obviously, just making up a narrative that could happen. Plenty of new signings for West Ham that could also play that Carabao Cup fixture, though. You've got Fulkrug, started on the bench. Wan-Bissaka started on the bench. Somerville. And even James Ward-Prowse, who's a really good player, was on the bench. So there are a lot of good players that could quite easily start in that Bournemouth Carabao Cup fixture. But Kudus is the one that I probably would like to look off the most. But game week 3 You then have Manchester City, so might be another short-term one. Fulham, a team that sort of picked up quite a lot of attention going into the start of the season because they have a nice fixture on. Now it's Leicester and then Birmingham in game week 2, followed by Ipswich in game week 3, West Ham in game week 4. So not a bad run at all. Robinson started off the season well on that Friday with 6 points, even without a clean sheet. It's one of the reasons why I put him in my team, because he seemed like he gets points even without the clean sheet. So 8 tackles, no bonus, which is normally quite good for. But 8 tackles got him 6 points, which you can't be disappointed with that. He had a really good game. Pereira, 2.5, took 8 corners and 3 free kicks. So on all set pieces still, 1 bonus point, was 1 PPM off getting 3 bonus. And I've just got the heat map up from SofaScore. Because if you look everywhere, it sort of says that Smith Rowe played number 10, Pereira played deeper. But the heat map says otherwise. Pereira almost the most advanced player on the pitch for the heat maps. So overall, he seemed like the better 2.5 option just in this game. Smith Rowe, sort of our fears were realised really. So he got an early sub at 64 minutes, just the 2 points. Probably still off it a little bit with fitness wise. Came close to bonus, but overall quite a quiet game. But it's a nice double again. I am all for building budget and chasing price rises. It's a big part of the game. You build up your budget so you can get the big hitters in later. But I think if you chose players for game week 1, don't throw it all out the window for game week 2 just because they didn't do well. I think he could have a good chance of returning, maybe with 1 start in 1 match and a sub appearance in the other. So I don't think either are bad options. Muniz, 3 million, not the best game, fairly quiet, but Leicester at home. Birmingham away, I'm not so sure he starts that though, because they have got Jimenez on the bench, who is a decent option. So probably looking at 1 start, maybe a sub appearance at the best. But with these Fulham players, if you are looking to bring them in, Ipswich in game week 3 looks nice. Game week 4, West Ham looks all right. Brighton will probably giving us the most exciting match of last game week, 3-0 against Everton. I did think Everton actually started the game okay, had a few decisions that sort of went against them, and then they sort of just capitulated really after that. So Matoma, 3.5, had a great game, 13 points, likely to get a 0.3 rise, it looks like. 3 shots on target, tackle points, and a bonus. Probably could have got even another attacking return if Ashley Young hadn't dragged him down and got a red card. So Matoma looking electric, maybe a decent option, but I would say the fixtures, United, home, not amazing. Crawley is one of those cup games that look like it could be too much on the easier side, that they rotate a fair bit. And then game week 3, Arsenal away. That again doesn't look like a great fixture. Game week 4, the fixtures get a bit nicer with Ipswich home. A Carabao Cup match if they get past Crawley, which it looks like they will. So if they do get another sort of Premier League side, maybe you could get a double game week there for them. But overall, Man United Arsenal doesn't look that great for me. But if you do want to go for the price rise, Matoma 3.5, and he does look like he started quite strongly. Minte, 3 million, grabbed an assist on his debut, but disappointingly had to go off through a head injury, the concussion protocol. So we'll have to wait for updates on whether he can start the next match. Maybe he does all right in that Crawley match. It might not be the end of the world if he is rested for Man United and then ends up playing against Crawley. Maybe he gets decent attacking returns in that one. But overall, exciting start for Minte. João Pedro, 3.5. Looked dangerous. He hit the post. Also had quite a close penalty shout. Was a bit of a dive, but he does love winning these pens and then taking them. So could be an interesting option. But I think that fixture against Crawley, he probably starts Man United, and then Ferguson wasn't on the bench, but maybe he might be back. They've got quite a few options. Welbeck's there as well, who got a goal and an assist. So I don't think Pedro starts both. And one last thing on Brighton. You'd have been a little bit disappointed if you went for Barco. He now, didn't make the squad, didn't make the starting lineup, made the bench, didn't come on. Now it looks like he's getting a loan move to Sevilla. So quite unlucky if you went there after we played quite a lot of the pre-season. Brentford had a decent performance against Crystal Palace, but I'm not so hot on their fixtures. So Liverpool away from home and then Colchester away from home. Just don't fancy Liverpool at Anfield, really. Visser, 2.5 million striker, got a goal and an assist, 12 points. So he will get the rise, but do you expect him to do well against Liverpool? And Buemo, 3.5 mid, goal, 10 points, took 3 corners in the match. But it's just the fixtures being quite hit and miss. Liverpool, Colchester, Southampton in game week 3 looks nice, but then Man City and Spurs after that. So a bit of a mixed bag. In terms of playing the double, Visser and Mbuemo did sub on against Newport last season, obviously under the same manager. The game was 0-0, and so in the 60th minute, they brought on Visser and Mbuemo. So he is willing to bring the players on if it isn't going their way, but I don't expect that they will start. But overall, not that keen. Then Forest. So the fixtures are still nice, but not the best opening game for them against Bournemouth. 1-1 in that one. Chris Wood, 2.5, started, scored 9 points, but was subbed fairly early for Wonyi, who looked okay. There's also strong links this evening that Nketiah could be joining from Arsenal. So there's quite a lot of uncertainty in that striker position. Poor game from Morgan Gibbs-White, who's in my team at 3.5 million. Just the 2 points from him. Wasn't taking any of the set pieces and just all round wasn't really that involved, which is disappointing. But I think I might be willing to give him another shot at Southampton away. And then Newcastle at home in the Carabao Cup is a tough one. Maybe they'll go a bit stronger for that one. Hudson-Odoi, 2.5, 2 shots on target, but an early sub, nothing really great there. Alanga, 2.5 as well, but off early with a possible injury. So keep an eye out for that one. I still quite like the fixtures, despite the poor result. There was that sort of horrific injury early into the game as well, which sort of killed the momentum, killed the energy in the stadium. So yeah, willing to potentially give them another shot, Nottingham Forest. Sells, done all right in goal. You'd have been disappointed to have conceded that 86th minute goal. But overall, not terrible from Sells. You'd be keeping hold of him. Right, here's how my team got on for game week 1. Please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed the episode. Game week 1, 97 points. Really, really good start to the season. So 3.5k overall, which is all I could have hoped for really for game week 1. Pretty solid returns all across the pitch. Got 2 clean sheets from Hull and Vardiol. Vardiol obviously getting that 11 points for hitting bonus. Robinson actually matched Hull through those tackle points. So it's not all about clean sheets. If you can find someone that does bonus or tackles, can be really helpful. And like I said, Sells just missing out late with that equaliser from Bournemouth. So overall, the defence did pretty well. Eze, unlucky not to score. He did score, but it was wrongly ruled out. So 5 points. I think you can find yourself unlucky. And he's someone that I'll be willing to keep. Saka, 15 points. Just always delivers. Goal and an assist in that one. Gibbs-White, I mentioned, was the only real disappointment this week. And then McNeil probably hit the bare minimum you can get away with. So 4 points, just about scraped a bonus and some tackles in that game. He did hit the post, which I thought was really unlucky. He had a 1-on-1 where he hit the post. And yeah, believe me, I would have been celebrating that McNeil goal. Haaland, 9 points, was my vice captain. Salah was my captain and the best possible captain this game week, tied with Saka. And then Isak did get an assist, but the red card really did dictate that match. So my first instinct this week is actually to roll a transfer, something that I've not done the whole time these new rules have been in place, or the new rules on Dream Team have been in place, because there's not really that much of a benefit transfer-wise, because if you roll a transfer, if you make no transfers, you gain 3 for the next week. I think it would have been a much more appealing system if you could roll the full 2. But on this one, you sort of burn 1 effectively by rolling 1. So instead of using 2 and 2 and having 4 across 2 weeks, you just get 3 across 2 weeks. So you're effectively down, but you get to make 3 transfers at once. And I feel like making 3 transfers at once could be quite helpful to me. Once we know the Carabao Cup draw and once we know European draws. So I feel like having 3 transfers with a bit more info could be handy. There's the fact that I'm in this nicer position where I'm probably not going to get that many price decreases. I don't have to maybe focus on price changes that much, that I'm in the position to maybe be able to roll. So yeah, that's a bit boring, but that's how I'm thinking at the minute. So looking at my team for next week, if I didn't make any transfers, I would potentially have 7 doublers. I think that's a bit misleading because when you look at it, I don't expect sells to double. All of pre-season, we were kind of not sure which keeper would start because they've got quite a few good ones or potential good ones. So I imagine that's a decent chance for them to try out one of their other keepers. So I don't really expect sells to double. Hall and Robinson from Fulham, I do think have a good chance of maybe playing in that double, even if it is just a substitute appearance. Eze, I'm doubtful that he will start too. Again, depending on game state, he could come on and he can damage you in a short period of time. Dwight McNeil and Morgan Gibbs-White are the 2 that I feel like I'm more confident that they could start. Again, nothing's guaranteed, but Southampton away in the first match for the Premier League and then Newcastle at home in the Carabao. If Gibbs-White's had a poor match, maybe they want to try and play him into some form. That's the narrative that I kind of want to spin for myself to make myself feel a bit better. And then Newcastle being a tough matchup, maybe they want to play some of their more experienced players. Dwight McNeil, I had a look back last season. He didn't play the initial matches, but then Everton went quite far. He didn't play the initial matches because he had an ankle injury. Everton went quite far and he did play the bulk of their Carabao Cup matches last time round. So I do feel like there's a chance that he does start. And then maybe if they do have another loss against Tottenham, maybe he wants to try and play the team into some form as well. So maybe McNeil and Gibbs-White could start both. Obviously, wishful thinking, really. Isak, I'm not sure. They don't have Wilson available currently, but they have got the new striker, Osula. Or they could play someone like Gordon up front for a little while. So I'm not 100% sure that Isak will play too, but he very well could feature in both. And then obviously Salah, Haaland, just a single. Saka, single. And Vardy, single. But they are really, really good singles to have. Like I said, I think chasing budget is important. But I just feel like the sort of way that this week has fallen, we'll find out the European draws. We'll find out the Carabao Cup draws for game week 4. And I feel like that could be quite valuable to use these extra transfers on. I think it is team dependent with how your week went or what your team currently looks like. But don't really feel like I have any massive fires. One thing that I would consider if I was going to make a change, maybe doing Gibbs-White up to a £4 million player because I liked how Maddison looked. And he's got that Everton fixture. Spurs having Newcastle and Arsenal after that, though, is a little bit off-putting. I also quite like Doku up against Ipswich, who's at the £4 million price point as well. And then having either of those in would be a sort of European-ready player, but no real guarantees that they will play twice a week when Europe comes. It would mean finding a 0.5 downgrade somewhere else. And obviously, Gibbs-White and McNeil are the 2 weaker links in my team. So it could be McNeil down to a Semenyo, maybe get a rise there, or possibly a Pereira if I think the fixtures look a bit better. But I don't think either of them are particularly inspiring. So leaning towards just letting it play out. Was happy with this team last week and pretty happy with it again. All of my picks I tried to sort of look at more than one game week. Rodgers, again, could be an option at 2.5 with a view to having Europe later. But it does mean having an Arsenal fixture this week. So again, not ideal. But overall, I'm thinking about rolling that transfer. If you've got any queries for your team going into game week 2, as always, drop a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you before the deadline. Remember, it's that Saturday deadline at 11 a.m. this game week. So don't get caught out. If you're looking for a bit more Dream Team content, head over to the Dream Team Tonic podcast, where myself and Tony this week chat about how Game Week 1 went so far and answer our Patreon members' questions ahead of Game Week 2. But yeah, that is everything for this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.